Thanks for watching Numbskull News, and today we're going to talk about Oregon State and Washington State, the rash that won't go away. Apparently, there are rumors abounding on X. Greg Swaim, MHVR3, they're at the lead of this thing. So I take the stories with a grain of salt. Haven't seen much as far as national media, your Ross Dillingers of the world, those type of people. Haven't seen anything from them. But that doesn't mean that the stories is automatically false just because it's coming from those two. So it needs to be addressed because MHVR3 said there was a straw poll taken and like 5 schools or 5 representatives from 5 schools said no. A soft no, they could change their mind or whatever. And the story is going that ESPN really wants the Big 12 to take those two. Does that make logical sense at all? Does ESPN want to pay for them to come into the Big 12? In one respect, it does make sense. Those two schools obviously are Pacific Coast time, right? They're on the extreme West Coast. The Big 12, as currently constructed, can offer late-night windows. You have 2 Arizona schools for the majority of the football season. The majority of it. They offer those late-night windows. The rest of the time, they're in Mountain Time. You have 3 other schools in Mountain Time. That is rough math. 5 schools that can give you the late-night windows somewhat. You know, it's not easy for them, but they can do it. Does ESPN they value that late night window so much that they want Oregon State and Washington State to come into the Big 12? It's possible. Now, I don't know about them demanding or insisting, but maybe they've brought that up. Maybe they brought it up to the Big 12's attention. Now, what is also said that Fox is not interested. You know, so they don't have to do pro rata for anybody. All right, we all know this. This has been covered through the Pac-12 saga. But for the 4 Pac schools, Fox did agree to pay their portion of the pro rata to bring those 4 into the Big 12. However, apparently, according to the authors of this story, the people that are reporting it, Fox does not care to put in their portion for Oregon State and Washington State. And I think the biggest reason for that is they don't offer a whole lot of value in basketball. Remember why Fox got involved or stayed involved in the Big 12. They wanted Big 12 basketball on Fox networks. And Oregon State and Washington State don't offer that. Now, I'm sure once whatever happens to the ACC happens and the Big 12 can pull in teams, those kind of teams do play high levels of basketball. They do draw eyeballs in that. So Fox would be interested in paying for them. Oregon State, Washington State, not so much. But let's get back to the ESPN part, the late night window. Is that important? Yeah, because can the Big Ten also offer late night windows? They can. However, they have 4 schools that are in that geography. And those 4 schools have such, I would say, higher level brands. At least 3 of them, right? USC, Oregon, and Washington. Do you really want to waste a premium matchup on a late night window? Do you think you'll see some late night windows starring one of those 3 schools maybe once or twice a year? But keep in mind there's 12 weeks of a season, and I do believe the Big Ten has 9 conference games. So can you cover all of those with those schools? Can you cover all the late night windows you need with those 4 schools? And by the way, you can't throw all that on UCLA every week playing a late night window. It's just ridiculous. So I don't think that the Big Ten can consistently offer that window, maybe once in a while. And right now, I don't even know how they plan on doing it. I don't know the history of it. But you're asking a lot, you know, and it's hard for me to see that you want to burn big brands like that having them play late night a lot. More, once or twice a year max. Maybe some non-conference BS game against Nowhere State. For the most part, you don't want to burn USC games on a late night window. So if you're the Big 12, do you really... That's also a plus, because if ESPN values that, if you have a media partner that really values that, that's something you want to try to offer, because that essentially makes you more valuable. A true coast-to-coast conference that can offer every time slot. We can do that now, but you can do it on a more consistent basis, adding Oregon State and Washington State. Another plus is those two do get pretty decent ratings. They get Big 12 level ratings. But do they have the potential to grow beyond where they're at now? See, this is why the 4G5 schools that we added last year in the Big 12, the biggest reason we added them, because they have a high ceiling. They have a lot of potential and a lot of room for growth. I would argue Colorado, Utah, Arizona, and Arizona State also have a pretty damn good ceiling. They have a lot of room, potential for growth. Utah is not done growing by any stretch of the imagination. They came out of the G5 and they have lived up to that. Colorado, once upon a time, was a national power, come crashing down in the Pac-12. Now they're back in the Big 12. You got Dion, and the hype is there. Can they get the results on the field? We'll see. But they're on the rise as far as national interests go. The brand is growing back, not to where it once was, but it's getting there. Arizona I think is one of those brands that has a lot of growth potential. They've done some winning last year. If they can keep consistently putting seasons like last year, 9, 10 wins together, they can grow by leaps and bounds. And Arizona State, a lot of people talk about them being a sleeping giant. They have the alumni base to really launch this thing out. They just have to put together any kind of decent team that can win some games, that can maybe vie for a Big 12 title. And I think you will see the ratings launch from them. But how much potential is there with Oregon State and Washington State? That's a big question for me. I don't see a lot of potential. They get good ratings now, but can they grow to something past what they've been? I don't know that they can. And you may be saying the same thing for like Iowa State. True, I don't think Iowa State more than likely will never be on the level of Iowa or of a lot of other Big Ten schools. Now, they're a fine university. They have a really good program, but there is limitations because they're in Iowa. Okay? They're always going to be the upstart. They're always going to be the Cinderella. They're always going to be that. No time. I don't see a time where Iowa grows past that. I don't see a time where Kansas State really grows past that and becomes a bigger brand than Kansas, or actual equal brand of that Kansas is. Maybe. I'm not saying it's not out of the realm of possibility. It's really going to be a struggle for them, though, just because of where they're located. And there's bigger brands in the same state that kind of suck up a lot of oxygen out of the room. So that's an issue. With Oregon State and Washington State, you have Oregon and Washington there, like I said, sucking up all the oxygen. And now it's going to be way worse with them two being in the Big Ten. If the Big Ten, if Oregon gets into the Big Ten title game this year, which they very well could, they got the coach, they got the quarterback, they got the team to do it. It doesn't leave a lot of breathing room for Oregon State. Just does. And I think that's a big part of the problem. I think if you're the Big 12, when they've looked at it before, trust me, they evaluated Oregon State and Washington State already, and they decided against it. Because I think the growth potential there isn't great. Because if you think about, look, Utah, it's the Utes, it's BYU, In the state of Colorado, the Buffaloes are it. In Arizona, it's Arizona State and Arizona. We got the biggest schools out of those states. Now, this is something totally different. I know what you're saying. We got what? 1, 2, 3, 4 Texas schools. And there's 2 of them that are now in the SEC that are much bigger than those schools. True, but it's a huge freaking state. It's massive. I mean, it takes longer to drive from Nacogdoches to El Paso than El Paso to LA. If that tells you anything about the size of freaking Texas. So there's a lot of room. Okay? And the population is steadily growing. There's plenty of room for other brands that aren't Texas, that aren't A&M, to grow and to be more than what they are. So yes, there still is potential for for TCU, for Tech, for Baylor, for Houston. But Oregon State and Washington State, it's a little different. These are smaller states, smaller populations, beautiful states. I'm going to go to Oregon here in a couple of weeks, actually, see some family. I'm going to check out that stadium, see what's rocking and rolling out there in Eugene. Let me put it this way. You're essentially bringing in another Iowa State and another Kansas State. All right. Now, West Virginia has plenty of room for growth as well, and they got a big fan base. They get great ratings all the time. And I don't mean to pick on you Wildcat fans. I don't mean to pick on the Cyclone fans. Okay? I'm supporters of you guys. Iowa State's going to be, I think it's going to be, has a chance. They're a contender for the Big 12 title. So is Kansas State, very much so. As a matter of fact, they're my pick this year to win the Big 12. But let's be real about what they are. They're a couple of the smaller brands in the Big 12. And there's not a lot of growth potential there. They're good, they're solid, but it's going to be tough for them. That's all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying. I think they're bigger deals than Oregon State and Washington State right now. They're bigger deals. They're bigger brands. And the problem is where they're located on the West Coast, northwest of the country, it's kind of no man's land as far as the media landscape. You know, it took the Seahawks forever to be anything. They had to win a Super Bowl and get to back-to-back Super Bowls with Russell Wilson. It took decades upon decades upon decades. And they had great players for all that time, legendary players, but no one paid attention to the Seahawks. That's in the NFL because they're way the hell up there and no one's watching. No one's paying attention. Hell, does anyone remember the Supersonics? Anyone remember those guys? Oh, they're in Oklahoma City. Are you kidding me? Seattle's a much bigger market than Oklahoma City. More people watched the Thunder than they did the Supersonics. That's bottom line. I'm sorry. Being in the Northwest, it gives you those time slots, but it really hurts your growth ability. I think if there's people out there with branding experience, you know, in that industry, they would probably agree with me. You know, the West Coast is already tough. But once you go north of California, it gets real tough. That's why it's actually really impressive what Oregon and Washington have done over the decades. Now, it's taken a lot of winning and a hell of a lot of marketing. Oregon especially. The Ducks, having that partnership with Nike has been instrumental in helping the Ducks get to where they are. Washington, like I said, they've done some winning as well as Oregon. Now, they haven't won it all. I don't consider them blue bloods, but in that neck of the woods, they are the two big dogs, and it's not close. So in conclusion, a lot of Big 12 fans like, yeah, let's throw them a lifeline. Let's do this. They deserve this or that. I'm not going to disagree about what they deserve. Do they deserve to still be power schools in an autonomous conference? Yeah, they've done nothing, and I mean zero, to not deserve that. Their fan bases are fantastic. The area of the country's beautiful. The landscape, from what I understand, and I'm going to find out for myself soon, from what I understand, is stunning. But as far as business, this is not show friends. It's show business. And I think for the Big 12, it's not a good business move. That's what I believe. And I know they got this war chest and all that. Look, they need to rebuild the pack around themselves with what other West Coast schools that deserve to be there. But do I believe ESPN has an interest? I do. Do I think some Big 12 presidents, ADs may have some interest? I think they would. I don't know if there was an actual straw poll or not. I don't know how much truth to these rumors there actually is. But when I rate everything, the potential of those two, there's not a lot of potential. There's not a lot of growth potential there. But does Oregon State and Washington State really help you elevate your money down the road? Maybe a little, because a little more consistent maybe with a late night window kind of thing. But beyond that, do they help that much more? I don't know that they do. I don't think anything like that would happen until you see what goes on with the ACC, because you have a chance for bigger brands and brands with actual growth potential to them. Brands that bring you much more brand value in basketball than those other two. So like I said, because of that, I'm not a fan of that idea. I'm sorry. Nothing against the Beaver fans. Nothing against Wazzou at all. I think as a conference, we need to move on past the West Coast. We got about as far west as we need to get. Now we got to go east. And that's where the attention needs to be. And getting some premium basketball only stuff in here. UConn, maybe others. Anyway, thanks for watching this crap, and I'll be back with some more crap later. Bye.